Hey, I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, please hit like, and thanks for tuning in today. What do we have here? I've got a very, very gorgeous lathe here. This is a lathe I picked up accidentally. I didn't even need or want to buy it. This is a San Martin, I think it's a Rolex knockoff, but a San Martin watch on a watch check, and it's really nice. It's really nice, but I got to take this thing off if I'm going to be farting around. See, milled clasps, beautiful watch, great movement in here. PT 5000 movement in there, so it's a good watch. So I'm just going to put this aside because I know I'll screw it up. Just move that over there, and then let's have a look at this lathe here. So this here lathe, what is it? What is it? It's a Peerless made in the USA. Made in the USA. It was made in the USA. So this here spindle, I think I may have to disassemble this at some point in time, but what I'm trying to do is fit in my counterbalance. Counterbalance, is that what this is called? Probably not, actually. And I want to fit this in, whatever the hell it's called. And I had a big motor on the back of this, and I do not want to use a big motor. What I want to use is a sewing machine motor. So I went online and let me see, counter shaft, counter pulley, counter something, counter, something counter. This looks like it's been sewing machine motor. Is it been opened before? Probably. Let's have a look here. It looks pretty beat up, actually. The packaging does anyway. So I'm just going to open this from the top here and see. I got this from Amazon, our favorite seller of everything, and it is likely from China, no doubt. And sewing machine motor. Loosen the screws, put it together. So all kinds of instructions I won't need. And what I want to do first is check the direction of the motor to make sure I've got no issues there. It comes with a pedal, and believe it or not, this pedal has a controller in it that's inside here somewhere. And this controller is the same controller that you see on hand drills. It's the same controller they use for almost everything. I have a very, very expensive sewing machine motor or pedal below my desk here that I use all the time. It is made for dentists and stuff, but it has the exact same friggin' controller. So this is a 100 watt, 110 volt motor. Thank God it's the right one. And all I do is, so I want to mount this, I'm going to end up mounting this somehow on here, right? So now I want to mount it this way, like that, because it's going to spin this gear over here. I'm going to just go up a little bit so you can see my nonsense here. There we go. So this gear, so the lathe has to spin, so when you're cutting, if you're looking at the lathe from this side here, it's spinning clockwise, right? If you're looking at the end of the lathe from that end there, it's spinning counterclockwise. So I want it to spin this way. For this to spin this way, which is clockwise on this side, then this has to spin this way, right? Which means this is spinning this way. And if I look at that directly, it would be counterclockwise. So I need that to spin counterclockwise. And I need to mount it on this stand here so that it's at least, there's a little bit of flexibility in moving it like this to tighten up the belt. And I think what I've done before is I've used a big bracket to do that. I think this bracket's probably a bit too big. I may have to go bracket hunting for a much smaller bracket. But the first thing I want to do is plug this thing in and see if it's going to spin in the correct direction. It's got a three article plug, 3-pin plug here, and you just push that in. See if that works. Of course, everything's going to be hard when you first do it. So, see. Yeah, indices, yeah, it all should work. Okay, there we go. So that's in there. And then I'm going to plug it into a power source. Now, I just happen to have a power source on my desk here, but I'm going to be a good boy, and I'm going to plug it into a power source. I have a big, big power bar on the side that is going vertical. So it's my vertical power bar. I've got all kinds of crap plugged into that, but it's pretty darn handy. And if I want to switch the whole darn thing off, I can. But to plug it in, I just have to go underneath here I'm trying not to get electrocuted. Find a receptacle and then plug it in. So now it's plugged in. Guess what? It works. So this would be like this. Let's see which directions it's spinning. And it is spinning the correct direction. It's spinning this way, which will drive this way, which will turn this way, which will turn my lathe this way, which means I can cut material. So, because you're graving against the lathe, it's going that way. So that's that seems like it has some pretty good power too. That's excellent. That's your typical sewing machine motor. Let me unplug this so I don't get electrocuted. And I need to unplug this too. And now I've got to figure out the whole bracket situation. So let me reconfigure myself and get right back. I got to turn off this video, but I'll be right back with some brackets, maybe. There we go. I went to the DOB, the Department of Brackets. Look at that. I've got some brackets. I saw previously I used one of these jobby doohickeys because it mounted the lathe up pretty high. And you could also use one of these, but the holes are pretty big on it. And this one here, I'm not sure whether I've got any alignment with the back holes here at all, or what. I think maybe if I screw it in this level here, it might work. It doesn't have to be, it's got to be solid so that it works really well. And then this side here has got an opening, right? And you want to have this probably in the back end of the bracket, like that, attached kind of like that. And it can be attached pretty high, because if I'm putting the counter shaft in, which is what this thing is called, and I'm putting it in, say, right here, because I'm trying to line up the counter shaft, even though I've got the ability to move the headstock a little bit back and forth, so I can be a little bit free with that. But if I mount this here like that, you can see that I've got a good distance here between this pulley, and I got it on backwards here. Wrong pulley. I want this pulley on the other side. Oh my God. Oh my God. I've had a good day today. I had a Marshall amplifier, an AV valve state 275 amplifier, and I was doing some electronics on it, and I shifted the basically replaced the fans on it because they were rattling, and one of them I did a fix where I put a couple of washers between the mounting nut and the aluminum bracket with the fan, and it got rid of the noise. But when I assembled it all, I didn't realize that there's these funky Marshall invented plugs. They've got 3 male and female, and you plug them in, and if they're slightly off like this, they feel like they're in there, but they're not, because the plugs are not in the center of the plastic bracket. They're off on the edge. So this morning I took the amp apart, I took the head out, or basically took the circuit board out, pulled it out, looked at it. I was going to do all kinds of crap on it. Checked the fuses, no problem. Checked the input jack. It's a 1/4 inch jack. No problem on the input jack. I metered everything, continuity tested it. Everything was fine. And then when I went and took that main bracket out where the fans are and the power amplifiers going to both of the amp sections, because it's a stereo 275. You can get 275, or if you add up 75, you end up 150 watts, if that's what 75 plus 75 is. So you end up with a 150 watt amp. Anyway, beautiful, beautiful AV 275. I bought it off my youngest son when he wanted to get a Marshall stack, because you just can't have a big enough amplifier, right? So, and then my wife said, "You're going to do what?" So I paid $700 to him for that amp, and he paid $1,200 for that years ago, many years ago, but I very rarely used the damn thing. So anyway, enough amp stories. So I have to figure out with this bracket how I want to attach it here. I'd like to be able to have, if possible, drill a hole and have one big nut in the middle. That way I can use this to loosen and tighten the belt. That's a good plan. So if I have it on one of these holes here, there ain't no loosening and tightening. So what I need to do is just mark where I think this should be, and then go down in the evil basement, and then, or I could do it here, but just drill a hole and hold that in one of my vices. I've got some pretty big vices, and then drill a hole straight through this thing and get a big nut, and hopefully with a wing nut. So I may have to go wingnut shopping later on today. So that's the plan. So that then would be, if I line all this up, and I'm just going to eyeball it, because you want to make sure big to small, small to big, and all this thing for the pulleys. So I'd want this, the bigger pulley here, to be aligned with the smaller pulley on the counter shaft, right? So and then this goes from big to small to big, and that gives you the torque you need, right? That's how you get torque. Even though, like I said, I'm an electrical engineer and not a mechanical engineer, I just play one on TV. So here I can move these shafts around. So shaft is also a really good show from years ago. I can take these on this counter shaft here, and these can be moved left and right. So I've got a lot of real estate here to move this one, and it won't make a hill of beans difference what position this is in from a torque perspective. It's the size of this wheel, so it's wheel math, even though it's wee good. It's wee good math. Wee good. So why did I throw an Elmer Fudd in there? Hello. So you can comment on my Elmer Fudd. Please comment on my Elmer Fudd, good or bad. Let me know. So I've got room to move these things around a bit. This shaft, this here pulley here, I could probably use for a pivot polisher mounted on the lathe, which would be kind of cool. So, but normally I don't use it, but I could use it for a pivot polisher. So what I want to do is mount this bracket, and I've got to have like a relative mounting on the bracket, somewhere at least a decent mounting on there. And I can put it over a bit, right, but not too much. So if I use the end screws here, if I use these end screws here, am I getting all the way through? I am getting all the way through with the end screws. So if I use these, this ends up here, right? I'm just going to do some hand fitting here, the handmaiden's fitting. So I'm doing this. This is a way everybody knows. So everybody knows when you look up, you're thinking. When you touch your chin, you're concentrating. When you're looking and when you're lying, you're looking up and to the right, because you're accessing the bullshit part of your brain. And when you're not lying and thinking, you're looking up and to the left or straight up. I wonder. When you're looking down, you're usually embarrassed or you don't know the answer, and you're hoping the person doesn't ask the question again. So watch out for keep an eye on that behavioral stuff that people do. The CIA are really good at that, plus magicians like me. We understand when people get it and they don't get it. And if you want me to do and show you another really good hand magic trick or something, let me know. Look at that beautiful watch in the background. This squirrel, this is, like I said, the San Martin, great company. It comes from, I believe San Martin's in China, but they make beautiful watches. And this watch here has got a 120 click bezel. Click, click, click. Look at that. Oh, I'll have to get a close up of it after. I'll just drag it over here now, just so, because you're boring the hell out of you with this lathe stuff. There's the watch there. 200 meter water resistant, San Martin, screw down crown, all high-end steel in this thing. It's got the Rolex case back, and it's got milled clasp on the back. And these are screw in. So these are screw in links. So none of that crappy cotter pin stuff that even high-end watches sometimes have cotter pin crap. Anyway, great watch. Let me sit it up here so you can look at it the whole time and not what I'm doing here. So there. So that's lined up. I use my eyeball. Wrong one. So I use my eyeball. I'm left eyeballed because I shoot left. So when I was in the Army years ago, and I had a rifle that was spitting bullets out this side because it was for right-handers, and it was getting shit in my face. And so I ended up flipping it for another rifle that spit stuff out the other way. So anyway, so here I've got this lined up. So I want to make sure the counter shaft is in the absolutely right position. There it is there. And if I look at this here, if I screw this into the front farthest end bracket like that, then I end up maybe at the extreme end of this, which means I got to turn this thing around the other way if I'm going to use it like that. Now if I go back a bit, just one step back, I end up having, I think I have a problem with misalignment of holes. Yeah, I don't know if I have the holes to do it. I may have the back holes to do it, but the alignment's perfect. So let me check this out and see if I got a hole problem. I also may have to increase the size of the holes in the bracket here because of my screws being not the right size. I have a giant bag here full of screws. Now I do have cabinets where things are a bit better organized, but I got like tons of nuts and bolts in here of all types I'm telling you. And I've got these ones here that are very good, but I need to use a different kind of bit for those because it's not right. It's not right, I tell you. And I've got a bunch of these. I don't know sure if these will fit anything, so I'm going to try that out. But I want to just do a little bit of an alignment here. So I'm going to use these very small ones here and just push them through the bracket and see if they align with the hole in the bottom. Because if they do, and how much room I have, then I won't have to re-drill holes in the bottom part. So there we go. That's the alignment there. So that's pretty good. Now if I look at the bottom, right, the bottom, and just because, again, anal retentive, I'll put a piece of masking tape, or tape, this is Scotch school tape, over the top of this so the screws don't go anywhere, like that, and just tip the whole unit so I can see the bottom and see where this thing rides. And as you can see, if it's at the very end, it's pretty tight. It's almost good enough, but pretty tight. Now if I move that over one, you can't see any of this, can you? There we go. I'm just looking at where these screws sit on the bottom. So this is perfect. So the screws will go through there nicely. I just have to make the bracket bigger, and I won't have to put any screws in the borel stand, which is nice. So the middle one is actually better. But the problem I have with the middle one is that I need to adjust the countershaft, because the countershaft alignment for the middle one with the motor on it, it's aligned nicely like that, right? I got to put the base on a bit differently. But when I look down here, and I take that motor, where the heck's the motor? Somebody move my motor. Oh my God, where's that motor? It's right here. So if I put the motor on like this, and I look at where this ends up, it ends up right on the edge, right over here. It's not a terrible thing, but I do have to take this wheel off then and move that, right? That perhaps is the simplest solution, because it's going to have to move. If I'm looking at it here, it's right there, so it's almost at the edge of this, which isn't that bad, I guess. So if I take this shaft off here, you just loosen this up. I'll show you how this works. You just loosen that and you pull this out on the end, and the shaft will fall right out on you. Hopefully it will. Sometimes you have to loosen the other screw too, or just do that. There you go. So now the shaft is out, right? Which is a wonderful thing. And then there's a screw on the edge here that you just have to loosen, and that screw in the end will allow you to flip that shaft around. So they did a good job in the old days making things, I don't know, better engineers maybe back then than there are now. So let me just show you here. This is one of these multi-screwdrivers that I just love. And I took one of the blades on the multi-screwdriver and I put a notch in it. See that notch there? Because there's friggin' automotive and other folks that don't want you doing anything. And I figure if you're not smart enough to put a notch in a blade, then you shouldn't be smart enough to actually work on their stuff. I just messied up my mat here. So all you do is you just take a screwdriver, hopefully it's the right size, you loosen this up, you flip it around like this, and again, because I'm anal retentive, I make sure the screws are all lined up, and you put it like this, and I think that's probably close enough. And then you just tighten this up here, tighten the countershaft up, and then when you're tightening something, never put your fingers in the back when you're tightening something, because then the screwdriver slips and goes right through your hand. Always keep your hands out of the way, keep them safe, especially if you play guitar like I do. So now I put this countershaft in, and it went in this way first and then this way on the edge, and when I pull that way, I can just push the jobby doohickey in there, adjust my camera a bit, and like that, and make sure it's loose enough to spin. and it doesn't hit anything. And they're also brilliant with their threads, because the thing ends here, not over here, but it's still pretty darn close. So there we go. So that counter shaft is now aligned. So now if I eyeball the alignment here, I don't really need to eyeball it that much, because this wheel can move back and forth a bit too. So if I wanted to keep it like this and then move this way just a bit, it's probably a smarter thing. And I'd be able to rotate the stand to likely have these screws line up with some of these. Then when I put this in here with the setting, I'll just call these alignment screws in the base, and I'll go down like this again. So that's the alignment screws. I get a little bit of play left or right with that, and I throw the motor on like this. Is that lining up? Oh, it's so close. So it's almost lining up. So what I would probably do is get the shaft, put the shaft in there like that, and then move this just a little bit more the other way. So, and again, the other option is I throw it into the back end here, right, like that. Turn this around, right, turn that around the other way, and then move this back like that. So I gotta go drill some holes though, because I want a big ass hole in the middle of this bracket, and I want it to be, I want to mark it so it's lined up properly. So I want the hole, just grab one of my markers here. Everything is within reach. Everything is within reach. Oh, reach back, reach back. There we go. Got a black marker. So I don't need to be super accurate with this, but I want this to be on this side of the screw, obviously, when I do this at the end of the day. So I don't want the screw to be in the way. So I want the hole to be kind of right there might do. Let me look at where that ends up. A little bit higher, I think. So right about there. And that will, I'll put a big nut in there, and that'll squeeze this together. So, and I want to be able to move it left and right. So when I mount this, I may want to make it, only because there's notches in the back, I want to be able to move that left and right. Sorry about me disappearing. So I want to, if these screws here get in the way, I can always grind them off. I'd rather not. So the mounting bracket then, let me look at this, can be kind of, and you don't need much to tighten this and loosen it, right? It can be maybe, you know what, it's not too bad right there. I'll try right here. I'll try to put a hole in it right there and see what it gets me, because I know I can move it back and forth. I just need to know that this top one doesn't get in the way if I mount it there. If I mount it a little bit lower, I got a little bit more rotational ability, so I'll just mount it a little bit, actually higher on here, right about there. That's all. So I just have to figure out what size screw I'm going to mount that with, and then I'm going to use the exact, like for these screws here, I'm going to make sure that I'd like these ones to fit here, so I'm going to measure those to see what happens there, and then I'll be right back with the drilled holes. Okay, that's how fast I am. All right, I'm back. So I hope you enjoy me sharing this little project with you today, because it's been a hoot, I tell you. I've got these protective glasses, but they've got ×3 on the bottom, which is perfect. I don't really need them on right now. So my watchmaking glasses, I've got various sets, as you saw in a previous video, work the best. So I drilled 3 holes on the bottom, which hopefully will align with this ridiculously nice, and they do. Looks like they align nicely. 3 holes aligned on the bottom. There's the alignment right there. Oh, look at that. Yeah, 3 holes aligned. All kinds of files on my computer. Those are all my recordings. So that's 3 holes there, and then these jobby doohickeys should be able to go in here and tighten up. So this might be too big, actually. If I get the smaller ones and they work, I'm going to use those, because there's a better real estate function. Oh my God. I know you're really enjoying this video, right? So you can lie. Say, oh look, JD, your videos are amazing. Lie. Okay, there's one. I'm hoping these are thick enough, or long enough rather, not thick enough, long enough to do this. I didn't bother putting any oil in my drill when I was drilling the holes through the metal here, because it's very soft metal. But normally I'd recommend that you do put a little bit of cutting oil on your drill, because it makes a big difference even when you're doing watch repair work. So I'm going to take out 3 screws here, and I may have to go to the department of washers for these screws to stay in place. So let me just close this down, and I think I have the DOW down here, because I had the other departments were all good, but I think I have the department of washers down below here in my bag of all kinds of screws. Here's a whole shitload of washers here that might work, right? And I just need to make sure they're not too small. Let me see. Will that fit? Ooh, so close. So close! Doesn't fit. Oh, gee, Ricky. I'm not sure if in the U.S. you get the Trailer Park Boys, but they're a pretty funny show up in Canada. They were on here for quite a long time. And they're the kind of show that your wife won't let you watch. Nothing personal. So my wife said, why do you watch that nonsense? And I only watch it because it's kind of interesting comedy. It's shot in Nova Scotia, Canada. And there's basically just funny as shit, that's all. So these washers work, and I just want to make sure that when I put this here, that it doesn't go through. Well, it kind of almost goes through, so I may have to double washer it. And that, let me see how far down this goes. That's not too bad. So if I put this in here just for a test right now, let me move my camera in correctly. All right, so there we are there, and there's 3 holes lined up nicely there for this bracket, and a big ass hole in the back here, which I hope works. So these, because these are so close to center here, when I put this in here, and I want to put a double washer in, so you got to put the bigger one in first, and then put the smaller one in second. So if I put the big washer in like that, and then the smaller washer like this, and that'll hug up against that big washer. And then I've got these screws here, which are self-tightening, right? Which is a bit of a pain in the butt if you're doing this and trying to just screw it in. But I'll do it anyway. And these are just short of the length of this leg, which is good, right? I may also want to put some soft feet on these legs here. So that's one like this, and then I'll just throw the other ones in, so I got them all set up, right? And I want the big washer. Let's see if I use the washer ridiculously big. Will this one work? Yeah, this one I think will work. So the big washer, and then I'll use the smaller washer only because I'm just that kind of guy. And like that. And then this bolt here is, like I said, it'll stay on. It's self-tightening bolt, so I don't need a lock washer on there. And then the third one, as they say in French, goes like that. And then you put the big washer on, and then you put the small washer on, right there, you know. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't have washers the exact right size, and I want this thing to stay on. And now I have to tighten this jobby doohickey up. And what I really like to do is get my ratchet set to tighten this, but it's a long walk to get the ratchet set. So I'll just tighten this up and get right back. So I'm doing it the long way because I'm too lazy to go get my ratchet set. I'm holding the knurled end with my pliers and just using a wrench here on the other side to turn this nut. And that's good enough. And I'll do all 3 like that and be right back. And there we go. All 3 brackets are in. That was a terrible adventure to do it that way. So I should have got off my butt and gone down and got my ratchet set, because it would have been a hell of a lot easier. But there we go. It's looking all good now. There it is there. So this is in place and solid as hell. So now it's a matter of mounting the motor, and I'm not sure, like, Should I do the same darn thing with the motor or get another screw and maybe a wing nut? I think a wing nut is needed. Now I've got to mount the lathe motor, so I've got some nut bolt configurations here that may work. I'm not absolutely sure, but it just might work. So I'm gonna try. Need a washer, and then I need to put on one of these jobby doohickeys. I want to put on a wing nut because I want to be able to tighten this thing. I think I'll put it on this side, and I should be able to tighten it and then roll it up. What do you think? That's not bad there. And then if I roll it up like that, is it going to give me that back and forth? Yes, it will. So roll it up like that and then tighten it like this. Now, one thing I've noticed is that there's a bit of a turn, like a bend in this thing, so it has to be bent this way a bit. Probably best to bend the bracket as opposed to bending the sewing machine motor. So if I'm able to bend that bracket with a wrench or something, I'll just bend that bracket, because it will work like this, but I'd rather have it being more or less horizontal. So this wing nut's holding that well. So that's in place nice. So that's no issue at all. And now it's just a matter of mounting the counter shaft. And the counter shaft would be mounted, try to mount it the same equidistance, I guess. So like that. I've got to turn this bugger around again because it's not lined up properly. And I've got to bend this. Maybe if I just bend it using the motor, I'm not sure, because it might, I think I just use a vice grip here and grab that and bend both of them forward. I may have to take these off to do that. So let's just flip this guy around first. Again. So there it is. I flipped this around and just get a general idea of where I want this thing to be. It's kind of like this. And so the best thing to do there is just draw a line. And you might be able to deal with unknown names. Shall I let my wife answer that? I will. Look at that. So I'm just going to take a red pen here and draw just a line because I know it's at the edge. And I'd like it to be kind of there. So I know I've got the ability to just draw a line in the bottom here on this side and try to get it to fit in that semicircle. Right, there's my pen there. It's always stuck to things, right? And more nuts and bolts. Yeah. So now I need to align the base here, and there's 3 screws here, or 3 holes here, and I'm hoping some of them align with the base side. So I need to take this base off of this. What a mess! So to take this base off, you just turn this here, and that loosens the pedestal, and you just rotate the pedestal off. So I probably don't need this, I just need the pedestal. So I'll just put this on my desk on the side here, and let's have a look at what this pedestal looks like fitting on here. And I kind of know where I need it from the red marks, right? The red marks are giving me a good indication of where I need this to be. So I'm just going to move the camera around just a little bit so you guys can see this. And I got it sitting on everything else. What a mess. Just stay there. So I've got 2 little red marks here, and I'd love for these, at least 2 of these screws to line up with the borel stand, right? So I don't know if I'm going to be that lucky, though. I've got maybe here and here, maybe. But I'd like it to be a little tighter. Let me think here. That might work there. I look through there, but I can see the edge of the stand when I'm looking through it. So I don't think it's going to work right there. I may have to drill some holes. So what I want is probably this one in the back fits, and I want this to be anchored like that, and I want to be able to adjust this like this so it's accessible. And so I'm not sure if these will fit in there. Let me just have a look at whether these actually fit, and they do, which is good. And that means I can use wing nuts on the bottom, right? So they're tight, but it's tight, but it's fitting. I'm not sure if all 3 holes. Yeah, so that hole fits too. That hole fits there. So what I need to do is drill another hole. And I'm looking where my little red line is right here on the base, and that's kind of where I want it to be. And the red line here on the side of this base. And I could drill a hole straight down through here as well. But I've got to mark those. So the first thing I'm going to do is wing nut these and see if I can just put this on. And I'm going to need, these will, it's a little sloppy, they go through a bit, so I need to put another washer on here, right? So land of the washers again. And I don't need that big a washer, I just need something just slightly bigger than the head, and put that on there, like that. And then I will see if I can line the base up with that, and then push it up. There we go. So it's going up now, and if I can put the wing nut on, I've got half the job here. There, like that. And then I know I'll use the wing nut to pull the bolt through. I'm telling you, all kinds of stuff needs to be done. And then I need to mark this and drill a hole. So I know I can't hold this in place with one bolt. It's not good. I need at least 2, and 2 might be enough, right? So there we go. That's that there. And then we look at the configuration here of what I got. So probably right there is okay, like that. And again, I screwed up here. No, I didn't screw up. So this is tightening devices on this side, which is good. It doesn't have to be at a 90-degree angle, but my retentivity tells me to do that. And I got to look feel under the base to make sure. So this one here is free of material under the base. This one here, if I go down the end here, it feels like the word borel is right there. So, but I just need two of them. Right, so I need to find the right drill that will go and make the hole for me. So let me grab my bits here. So this drill bit for sure will work. It's a bit bigger, but it'll work. I just need to mark the center of where the drilling is going to happen. Now to mark this properly, I can mark it improperly, but I'd really like to mark this properly. I'm going to stick the stick into the hole, just like this here side. But this side, but I'm going to put a little bit of marker material on that stick really quickly and just swish it around in a circle and see if it gives me the relative the end of that hole. This is my theory anyway. Do it really quick and I might be able to do it here. Now, if I rotate that out of the way, did I get anything there? No, it's not good enough. I'm going to have to scratch it. Gonna have to scratch it somehow. So that didn't work. Unless there's a goo or something I could put in there. Chunk of Rodico. Take a Rodico, put it right through the center. So I think I'm going to just scratch it. I'm going to use this screw that's going to end up going in the hole to make scratch marks. So let's see if that works. So just bring it to the bottom and turn it. Make sure this is tight so I don't get the wrong position here. Okay, that's good enough there. So just turn that a million times. You can also tap it with a hammer. Now I'm hoping that when I do this, it's going to leave a scratch mark, but I'm not absolutely sure. So let's see. Yeah, perfect. So that left a little semicircle right there. So So that's the center. I don't even think I need to punch it because I'm using a pretty big drill bit. And I'm going to drill it right in place. So now I'm standing up, brave as I am. Try to find the center point here. And I know I've got a little bit of movement on the other screw there, so I'm not too concerned. So if I do this, is that going to be center? Perfect. Right through the borel stand. And now I got to just clean this up because I've got a great cleaning device. Oh, reach, everything's within reach. There we go. So I'll clean that up so I don't leave little chitlings. There, now I gotta pray that my alignment is at least partially decent, right? And take this one here and put this in. I can trim those off after if I'm really caring about the aesthetics, but I don't think I care too much. So I just want to make sure this is aligned, and I've got the room to move this thing around, and it does. It comes right through nicely. So it's popping through, which is nice. And just like before, I can use the wing nut to move that to the top. So I'm going to put the wing nut in there. Wing nuts are great, by the way, for doing all this kind of work because you can adjust things. And when you're using belts on lathes and stuff, you kind of want that ability to do some minor adjustments. So these bolts, or these nuts and bolts, just fit perfectly. The bolt fits perfectly through, and the wing nut is man's best friend, kind of like I think what is duct tape. That's man's best friend as well. So I'm just pulling that part through here. It seems like it's having a fun time trying to get through from the bottom, but it's coming. It's coming. Oh, the other thing I didn't put in here was a washer, but I didn't need one because the hole is custom fit. It's a custom hole. I'll show you the hole from the bottom, and once I get this tightened a bit, so that's tightened really good, and this one is tightened really good, so you don't need it any more tight than that. And then I have to just crash my camera down here, get live action photographs. So I want to put the counter shaft back in here, and I can determine how high or low I want this counter shaft to be, but let's just say I put it right there like that. And the reason I put the try to level it off a bit like that, and the reason I moved the counter shaft back more from here, like I moved it's closer to the motor here, but I can move the motor away. I want to make sure that this shaft here doesn't get in the way of any of my lathe work when I'm running the lathe, right? So, and this belt here is an old belt I was using, so I can reuse this belt because I can remeasure it, which I might do actually, or I can make a leather belt because I like making leather belts. Now what I need to do is, I think this is fine like this. I just need to bend this a bit. I got to bend this thing forward, so it's and it's naturally bent here. There's a bend on it in the back for fitting sewing machines, I suspect, right? So, but I'd like to basically unplug this, put the motor down here, and then bend that up forward a bit, and that allows me to line this part. So I'm going to just going to bend this a bit, maybe using a wrench. So just to be safe, I'm going to unscrew this motor from the bracket just to make sure it's out of the way. And look at how that's configured. So there's basically seems to be some kind of a washer in here that's part of it, right? Yeah, there we go. I'll loosen the washer up a bit. It's been there forever. And I'll just undo the other one too. This is your setting up a lathe video. So I'm just gonna, I think that's what I'm gonna call it, and you guys can just bore yourselves by watching me do this, or not. So I just want to make sure I don't lose any washers here. as part of this little exercise here. And now the question is, can I just bend this, like heave, do the old heave ho, as they call it. So this here, I'd love to be able to just take it like this and then bend it forward, right? That might work, it might not work. Bending the bracket is, I think, harder than bending these. So just grabbing this here and see if that'll bend for me. I think if I use a bigger wrench, it's going to be a little easier. I need torque. There we go. That's bending now. And then this one here will bend as well. I think they're bending right at the ends here. If that's going to be a problem or not, but let me look at how that's supported. So I got a bit of a bend there, so I'm not sure if that's, it's not really flat anymore, but good enough. I'll just screw this on here. My other technique of actually trying to bend it with the motor itself was stupid. So just make sure you don't do that, because you'll ruin the motor and you got to spend another 35 bucks. These motors are pretty cheap when you think about it. So that is perfect. That angle is absolutely perfect for spinning. I just need to tighten these nuts here just a bit, and that little tiny bit of a bend is all it needed. And I think the washer, the rubber washer or grommet or whatever it is, it's going to provide a bit of dampening of the motor, so it'll be a little less noisy. But really these things they whine away, but they're not that noisy, I don't think. I don't think they are. There we go. So that's that. And I think before I make the leather belt, I'll get all this stuff working. So now I can line this up properly. See how it's moving around? And I'm looking straight down the sight here, and my small pulley is lined up perfectly with the lathe pulley. So I've got good alignment between the small pulley here. Let me just lift this up here. So the small pulley here is aligned perfectly with the lathe pulley, like that. And then I wanted this pulley to be aligned with this pulley. It needs to be kind of close, right? But if you can do it, you might as well, right? So it's a good practice. So, and you get a picture of this watch again. So what I'm going to do, because I kind of want this thing to work, is I'm going to measure this belt, and I'll make another one quickly for this, and then we'll just try this all out and see if it all works. So let me get back with belt stuff. So here's my setup so far, and I just have to bend this just a bit because it's off. So I just eyeball it. It's good enough because the belts won't be too far off. So just eyeball that and then tighten it up again like that, and we're good. And then I just make sure that this is kind of lined up with the motor now, the way it is. So I'm looking at the motor. I think it actually is too far down. I was able to bend it just like that. That should be good right there. And then tighten this up. Once I got it close to go, and again I'm lining all the screws up here because I'm anal retentive that way. So shout out to Sonny out there if you're watching me do this crap. So how to set up a watchmaker's lathe. This is a bit of a job if you get a hold of one of these very nice watchmaker's lathes. You do a good job setting it up, and you'll run forever, run smooth forever. And I usually put a little tiny bit of oil on here because I think this is leftover from the person who had it before, but I could clean it up later and then oil it after. But I've got this oil is 0W20 synthetic, and you can use that on your lathe as well, which is a great oil costs you pennies to do. So I've got one belt here, and there's no way this belt is going to fit. It's just, that would be too lucky, right? Because that belt's got to go inside here and around, and it's going to be connecting with this and connecting with this. So I'm going to have to measure that, which means I'm going to have to loosen this and put it in. Then I've got another belt here. I got more material here that I could possibly build another belt with. And this would snug in underneath. It looks like it's not going to fit, but it will. And it'll snug in underneath here and then fit in the groove. Just hang on a sec. I gotta loosen this up here and get this thing out of the way. There we go. So do that and then tighten it up a bit. And there we go. Push that in. And there it is there. Everything is good, I think. Tighten that up and that'll spin like that, and then this belt might rub here. It might, because it's pretty thick. But just to show you how it works, it might be good enough. So that's pretty much the way that belt would fit right there. So a quick measurement. And I think that this belt will definitely rub against the bottom of this, so which is not good. And there's no way of rising this up to prevent that. The only thing you could possibly do is raise the motor up so that the motor is at a different angle and it might not then bend or hit this part here. You can also rotate this just a bit. If you loosen this here in the front, like that, like this, and you rotate this just a bit, like that, then you're moving it closer to the motor here, and that will free it up from touching a bit. It's still touching. It's the nature of these. It's the nature of these plastic belts, so it's they're kind of shitty. But I just wanted to show you how that works and how it spins. And let me see if that's how free this is. Yeah, this is rubbing in here. It's just a big belt, that's all. And you can't rise it up. You can't get it up higher. So you can just rotate it. So I might as well leave the lathe in the position it was in, loosen it, and then bring it back up again. And then you melt the belts on. So let me just do this here. Tighten, loosen that up. I like the counter shaft to be more or less vertical. Right? It doesn't have to be perfectly vertical, but vertical is nice. Vertical is my friend. So I'm just eyeballing it from both sides, and there we go. That's vertical there. And then this belt would have to be sized to fit around here, and the other one would have to be sized to fit around there. So let's see if there's any way of doing this quickly here. Alright, so this belt, right, goes around the smaller wheel here, and that fits in there. So that would fit in. I'm sure I put this in before. Let me do it this way. There we go. Now it's in, and I'm just going to tighten this up a bit, make sure it runs smoothly. Yeah, that's good like that. Yeah, that runs nicely. So this belt would go around the smaller wheel here, right? So I can measure that and then melt it on. I'll do that and just show you how that's done, because there's a guy from my watchmakers club who was curious about how you melt one of these belts on. Let me just cut it first. Get my pair of scissors here. There's a friend of mine who's a watchmaker who always pokes himself with needles and stuff, and he said that he just sterilizes the ends of his needles in his kit because he knows he's going to be poking himself. So there's the belt. You can see if these things are same size or one smaller than the other. Yeah, they're pretty close. Yeah, they're pretty close. So we grab this one here. Make sure you always put it inside the head before you do any crazy stuff here. And I can effectively cut this where I want to and then melt it on after. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to cut this much off and that should do right there, and right about here, like that. Make sure you don't cut the wrong side and end up with a belt this big to work with, like that big. That'll piss you off. And now when you melt it, don't take it off. I did this once. Don't take it off the head, because if you do that, you're screwed. So let me melt this. I'll show you how this is done. So the first thing you do is get a jackknife. I use my father-in-law's favorite knife, right? That way I can feel guilty about ruining it. But squeeze the knife in like this into a vise. You don't need to squeeze it too hard because you're going to heat this thing up. And you need to have it in a position that you can reach it from both sides of the belt. So I'm going to move it in a bit, maybe right there. And now when I do this, I can melt this together like this, right? You also want to make sure that the end is relatively flat. That's not too bad. Scissors don't do a great job on that. If you've got the choice to use, just use a razor blade, then use the razor blade. So now you just have to heat the end of it up first. I use one of these portable butane torches. Don't hit your camera with it and other crap with it because it'll burn some stuff fast. So I just do that, and the torch will start up, and I just heat the knife up on both sides. It doesn't take much to heat this to the right temperature. And you get this, it'll stay warm for a while, and then you melt it on like this. I try to do this without screwing this up, like that, and then bring the belts up together like this, and then merge them like this. Okay, that was shitty. You gotta make sure they're merged to center like that, and then just hold them there for like a minute, and they'll eventually become one belt. And then once you've done that, you can sand away the joint between the two. So that's a belt. So as well, is that merged yet? I think it is. It's a pretty cool way of doing it, actually, and it becomes a pretty solid. I made one of these, and it's still working. You can use a knife then to clean up the edges of this thing. So let me just move this out of the way here for a sec. And the knife, once this hardens up, you can just chisel this away with a fingernail or with something. So it's still a little bit hot though, so I'm a little bit afraid of it. Now the other belt I might be able to do too, but it's going to rub, like I said, against the base, which I don't want it to do. So I don't know if I have a thinner piece of that material. See, now that I've done this, I can use the same knife. I clean this knife off with a fingernail, actually. You can use a knife or a razor blade to kind of finish this off. I can see that it's not attached really well right there, so I'm not going to bother spending too much time with this belt because I'm going to make another one. So I'm going to make a leather one, and I do have a YouTube video on how to make a leather belt. So let me just put this aside here and just attach this belt really quickly here, and then we'll go to the other side, and I'll see if I can put something on there that'll make it run. Maybe I'll just put a rubber band on there just so you can see the lathe in action. So just pull that out like that, and then this should free itself, and then you can do that. Put it back in like that, pull it back into position, push this on the end to line it up properly, and then you do that. Now I got to put a rubber band or something in here to run this thing. So I can just use a basic rubber band. Will likely run it without a big problem. Let me see if I've got a thicker rubber band, because I'll make the lathe belts out of leather for this good quality leather, Corinthian leather. All right, hopefully this rubber band works, so I don't have to make a full belt here for you in the meantime. But anyway, let me just plug this in. Looks like the groove is on this side, so I'll plug this into its port like that, and then so that's plugged in, and I just plug the other end into the wall, and we'll just see if this thing actually runs. Hopefully it does, and then I'll just make a better leather belt, because you can never have too many good leather belts. All right, and this is out like this is like that, so yeah, that's working. So there you go. That's the lathe. And this is not a great belt, by the way. It's kind of slipping a little bit, but it's turning this shaft here like that. And then it's turning this one here and torquing that. And you can feel the torque here, actually. It's good enough to make like watch parts. And that's the lathe, that's the motor, and the lathe actually running. You just grab the camera so you can see it from the other angle. There it is there. And I think we can declare some success here. So that's the new motor then. That's been installed. It's pretty solid in there. No issues at all. And then the bracket was necessary down here to get this thing in the base. I didn't need to screw. Only one hole needed to be screwed in this whole borel stand to make this thing work properly. And I had to do that before with a lathe. So what I'll do is I'll make a leather belt out of this. And I do have a video online on how to make a leather lathe belt using boot leather, which is really good, and using a boot leather and 5-pound fishing line, and sewing the two together like this. And there's a technique for doing that. So, and it works brilliantly. So now if I want to actually put more tension on this or more tension on this, I've got a wing nut down here that I can just do that with the wing nut and then pull the whole unit over a bit, and that'll put more tension on the belts. So if a little bit off, then there's no issue, right? So that's it. So I'm JD. So thanks for watching this very long video on how I reconstruct this lathe. This is a very nice lathe, by the way. It actually has the tailstock actually has a drilling tailstock, which is unique. It's not a called holding tailstock, but you can get the right taper in here is not difficult to get, and then you can use that for a drilling tailstock, because that'll pump action drill that. So it's kind of cool. Very nice lathe. I may strip it down. It came like this. I haven't stripped it down yet. I just wanted to make sure there's oil in it and there's no problem there. That's it. So I'm JD. Thanks for watching this video, and throw some comments in, please. And you get a last smile so I can make my thumbnail.